So I just finished recording the Q&A, and this is going to be the first part of the Q&A. I didn't know before I finished recording. So this is the introduction to the first part of the Q&A. Enjoy! Hello everyone, and welcome to the Q&A video to celebrate 1K subscribers. I'm still very excited about this, even though it was a month ago, but you know, any subscribers for me is always great news, but reaching 1K is particularly sort of special, I guess. So what I've decided to do, like most people on YouTube, I'm not being very original, I guess, is to do a Q&A where you ask me questions and then I answer them. So I'll be answering questions both from YouTube and from Twitter, since I'm present on both platforms. So the first comment that I received was from Go Beyond Words. And the question is, can you make a video for Brazilian Portuguese beginners? The answer is no for now anyway, because I'm not Brazilian, I'm Portuguese. So I don't know, I don't think I've got the skills to really teach anyone Brazilian Portuguese because I don't even sound Brazilian. So I don't think I will be doing Brazilian videos so much unless there's a YouTuber out there that lives nearby that wants to collab with me and do a couple of videos together. Why not? But at the moment, it's not within my plans. But you know, never say never. I hope that answers your question. Sorry for the negative answer. And then we have a question from Japanese Journey, Johannes. I remember how to pronounce your name. I mean, I hope that's correct. So, will you be in Tokyo when you visit Japan next year? I don't know if I will be in Tokyo. I think I won't, because so far what I've been doing is going to the Kansai area to see Osaka, because I've got friends there and I just love Osaka and, you know, surrounding cities, that I always want to go there. But I think I might go to Tokyo, but the only reason why I might not is because it's obviously quite expensive to take the bullet train. And since I'm landing in Osaka, then I think it's about £200 for the return. So obviously that really changes my budget. So I think I might, because I feel like since it's going to be the third time I go to Japan, I think it's time that I go to Tokyo, at least to sort of see what it's like. But I'll let you know, I guess. I haven't decided yet, and I don't know exactly what my budget will be. I mean, I have an idea, but I don't know if I can make it bigger, my budget. So we'll see, I guess. And now a comment from Michelle Luzuriaga. I don't know in what language to pronounce your name, so I'm going to make it English. So how did you know that you wanted to study linguistics? Any tips, advice? Do you recommend a book that's easy to understand for non-students? I think, I don't know, there wasn't really a time when I wanted to study linguistics. I think it started when I did my BA in English, and I think the equivalent in English is like English philology, I think, but in French we call that Anglais LLCE, which is essentially literature, history, linguistics, phonology and translation, and I think that's all. And during this BA, I met like tutors that really, I think, inspired me and made me want to pursue grammar in more detail, and grammar became linguistics. So obviously grammar doesn't equal linguistics, but it's just that my liking, my love for grammar just became broader to sort of language in general. And I've always known I wanted to do something with languages, and linguistics just seemed to be the obvious thing for me to do. I mean, I know you could do language learning, you know, like just do BAs which teach you languages, but I don't know, I just enjoyed language. And I think also because I learned about the fact that some people research bilingualism, I was like, yes, this is for me. I want to research bilingualism. I want to understand how, you know, bilingualism works. And I think that's kind of how I got into it. And then I did a master's in linguistics and I studied bilingualism, which I think I will make a video about my dissertation. I don't know when yet, but stay tuned and you will see it eventually. As for any tips or advice, it depends, but I'm guessing you're looking for advice onto whether you should do linguistics or not. I don't know. But if that is the case, hopefully I'm not answering off topic, but if that is the case, I think for linguistics, it's important to realize that it's not only language learning. And I say that because on Twitter, people tend to call language learning and linguistics sort of the same thing. I don't, because obviously I've studied linguistics, and for me that's more like a science as opposed to language learning, even though language learning is obviously part of linguistics, if that makes sense. But I don't use one and the other as synonyms. But in terms of advice, is just to be aware that it's going to be work. I mean, linguistics is not necessarily easy. but it's a lot of fun. And if you're going to do linguistic studies, just be aware that there's going to be quite a bit of theory, like most university sort of studies. But I found it interesting, but I know also some people might not like it, and they might expect linguistics to be more, I don't know what they would expect, but they might expect it to be less theoretical. So yeah, I guess that's my advice. Expect it to be quite theoretical. In terms of book I would recommend that's easy to understand for non-students, I don't have a reference. I don't think I had one while at university, or not one that I really sort of read through or read entirely, but any sort of books that are called Introductions to Linguistics should be good. In fact, for any sort of field of linguistics, you're going to have a book like Introduction to Phonology, Introductions to Sociolinguistics, etc., etc. So I think any book like that is a good place to start. So if you want to gain a general understanding of linguistics or any subfield of linguistics, then that's what I would recommend. Oh, there's more to the comments. So Michelle wants to switch a major, and most people, she thinks, will not agree with her decision, even though she wants to pursue research or speech-language pathology. Well, this one is a tricky one because for most subjects, people will have opinions, and I think linguistics is not always seen as useful, or people just don't really know what it is, so they will judge it negatively and will prefer things like science because it just sounds more concrete. And I don't know, there's all this sort of connotation that, you know, science like biology will give you more money, or it's just cooler, I don't know. But linguistics, obviously, I think it's fascinating, and it's so underrated because we actually don't realize, you know, if we don't know linguistics, that linguistics is literally everywhere. In the dictionaries you look at, in the textbook you study, in translation softwares, and the list goes on and on and on. I mean, this is just a small, tiny amount of the things where linguistics can be found. But, you know, people are always going to judge you, and I think it's important to, you know, just go with your guts, and also be sure that linguistics is what you want to pursue, like what kind of profession do you want to do afterwards, because linguistics tend to sort of get you stuck in research. So if research is not really what you want to do for a living, then that's something to sort of consider. But I wouldn't be really qualified to give advice on sort of what to do after linguistics, because I did language teaching, which is something that is still linguistics, sort of, but it's sort of different. I just kind of wanted to do both. I wanted to both be a teacher and also study linguistics. And I hope that helps. I keep saying that in this video. I'm gonna have to say something else now. And a comment from Tokini Andy. Hello Andy. So what was the most difficult language for you to learn so far? So my most difficult language for now is definitely Japanese. And it's not even because all the words are sort of different from the languages I know. I mean, it is part of the difficulty, but it's not just that. I think it's really just the reading. Because for English, when I was practicing English, I could use subtitles and I could associate, you know, reading and listening, and I could pick up vocab because, you know, on any sentence I would know maybe, let's say, 60%, and I could figure out a few words every now and then, and I think that's how I built up my vocab. But with Japanese you can't really do that, because if you use real Japanese writing, then it will be full of kanji and stuff, and it's just sort of like a barrier, I think, to the language. So I would say that's the most difficult thing for me about Japanese, but there's most likely other things, like grammar is sort of different, but I find it very cool, so I don't consider it to be a difficulty, more like a fun challenge, like I need to break the code in a way. And now a comment from Clarita. So, hi, I have several questions for you. First of all, as I know you are living abroad, don't you miss France sometimes? I miss France almost all the time, especially the food. And just sort of like landmarks, you know, having things that exist back home but that don't exist here, like supermarkets or types of shops, or I don't know, all the little things, but I don't miss it massively, but every now and then I'm like, oh, I wish I could get that from France, or I wish I could go to that park that I really like. So, you know, some of the things I used to like when I was living in France. So, but you know, that's how it is, I guess. You know, that's the game. You know, when you live abroad, there's always going to be things you miss. So I really want to live in Great Britain, but I don't know if it's easy to stay in another country your whole life. You know, so I kind of need your opinion on that point. Well, I think whenever you move to another country, there's always going to be some things that are difficult. You know, culture shock is going to be a thing, and also just, you know, finding your mark and settling in a culture that's not yours, and being a foreigner in a country can be sort of challenging. I mean, I can't say I've had a hard life here, not at all, but every now and then, just missing home, like I just talked about, or just feeling like sometimes you don't really belong 100% because you're foreign, because you have an accent or something like that, then that can be kind of difficult. But I know the challenges are different for different people, so I can sort of talk to you about mine, but your challenges will most likely be different from mine. So I don't want to, give too many sort of negatives, because I don't want to scare anyone away from coming to England. But it's obvious that there's going to be some things that are difficult, but also there's a lot of things that are great about living abroad. For some people, I think if the bad is too strong, then it can mean that their experience is not going to be great. But if the good sort of overpower the bad, then you can have a good experience. But it all depends on the people, I think, your personality, just your take on life in general. I mean, I'm not trying to be philosophical, but I think that's really down to that. Then, was it easy for you to make friends when you arrived in England, or did you have to wait months before having one? I was lucky enough that when I came to England, I was doing my Erasmus, and during the Erasmus, everyone is grouped together, or like spends a lot of time together, so I could make a lot of friends. I mean, I was never alone, which was great, so it made my experience much better. But I know if you go to another country and you go there to work, you don't have the same sort of social circle, so I don't have that experience because I've always had friends, basically from day one, so I can't really comment on not having friends or struggling to have friends in another country. And then what is the thing you hate most about England? I think the thing that I like the least is sometimes the way people express their thoughts. So in France, we tend to be more direct than in England, and in England sometimes that can be a little bit frustrating. Not now, because I'm used to it, but at the beginning, if you wanted to go out with a friend, they might tell you, oh yeah, I might do, oh yeah, I might come, and that actually means no, or that means maybe, but more likely to be no, and I didn't get that. At the beginning, I thought they were saying yes, and then they said no, so that led to quite a lot of disappointments because it was purely miscommunication. So I think I just wish like British people would be more direct. But then again, in France, in French, we also find ways to not be too direct, because we might be, overall more direct than English people, but we're not, 100% direct, because the point is not to offend the person. We still have some ways of not being too confrontative, and we don't want to be rude in general, despite the stereotype. But yeah, I think that was the thing I hated the most. The thing I prefer in England, it's not so much about the country, I think it's about the language. I really like speaking English, especially British English. But I'd say that was maybe my first reason to come here, obviously study the language and just have an experience abroad. And now what I like is just my life, I've been settled here. But it's not really something that's specific to England. I feel like in another country I could have settled just as well. But that's the thing I like, being independent, not living with my parents anymore. I mean, I love my parents, but it's nice to be independent, and I think that's the thing I prefer the most, being independent. Wow, so I was recording the Q&A and now there's like fireworks, so I'm gonna show you. I'm trying to direct the camera. Here you go. You can't really see them so well, but that's from my window. So the fireworks just finished, so let's go back to the questions. So last question from Clarita was, why did you decide to learn Japanese? For me, this question is actually kind of hard to answer because there isn't one clear thing. I feel like most people, they get into Japanese through manga or anime or something like that, but for me that wasn't the case. I've been watching animes for a long time, like since I'm 12 maybe, but it wasn't anything massive, I can't say I love anime, I just like Naruto actually, that's my guilty pleasure. But I think really what made me want to study Japanese was first of all the sort of challenge behind it, because I speak, before Japanese I spoke 5 languages and they were all Romance languages, so nothing super challenging for me, because when you know 1 or 2, then the rest sort of just flows, it's just easier. But for Japanese, it was really more challenging because it's a new writing system. It sounds completely different. The grammar is different. And, you know, it's just like a challenge essentially for me. And I think that's what I liked. And the second reason, I believe, was that I met Japanese people and they just left a very positive impression in my mind. I mean, I didn't meet thousands of Japanese people, but the few that I've met left a good impression on me. So I think that's how I decided to start Japanese. So this is the end of the first part. I didn't know at the time there was going to be 2 parts. So this is me trying to conclude the first part of the Q&A, and I will see you in the second part. Bye!